says it's going live and setting up the meeting, and I'm going to paste the link in here in the Zoom chat.
This is exciting. All right.
1 second. This meeting is now on YouTube, but that's not entirely sure.
All right. Chat over the link, and I will share it on Twitter immediately.
Okay. I don't see you in this. Like I see me, but I don't see you. I don't know how to make that. Oh, it switches automatically when one of us is talking. Okay, cool.
Cool.
All right, hang on 1 second. Chat. There's the link.
There you go.
There we go. Okay, and now I will take the link and I'll retweet you. Anyway.
Link, and I'll share it on.
Yeah, I think it's recording and doing stuff now on YouTube, so we should probably make sure not to swear or have patchwork across keyboards, things like that.
Okay.
I see me, but I don't see you.
All right. Come on.
Oh, cool. It's automatically. One of us is talking. Okay, cool.
Copy and pasting. What is going on today? All right.
And then,
okay.
Also give them this too. If they can't do that. Okay. Okay. Very fun.
All right. How's your morning so far?
Liking and retweeting and doing all of the stuff you're supposed to do on social media. So I just retweeted. Yay for the fun. And now we can even chat here. Not in a weird way. There we go. All right. I think it's out there now. Hurrah.
All right, cool.
I'm going to turn it up a little bit so I can hear you.
Oh my God.
Watching, doing all the stuff you're supposed to do. Oh, I think probably YouTube. Now we can even chat.
Oh, we got 2 watching, which might be you and I.
I think it probably is. It's out there now. Hurrah.
All right, cool.
Okay, what do you want to know besides where my cat is right now?
Huh. There's definitely a time delay.
Oh, ignore YouTube. You look only at the.
Okay. All right. So I read a little bit about your book. So tell me a little bit about what inspired you to write this book.
A couple of different things. First of all, nobody had done it before. And I think that I don't think I knew how hard it would be. I think there's a combination when people do stuff for the first time that no one's done before, where there's sort of this combination of why hasn't anybody done this before? And then about halfway through the process, you're like, oh, that's why nobody's done this before, because this was a terrible idea. Yeah. So like nobody's gonna, and remember one of the things I've seen people talk about when it comes to being creative, you will never hear from the silent thousands of people who love the work that you do. The only people you're gonna hear from is like angry Aragorn 73 basement mom, and that's the only person you're ever gonna hear from about like your work, right? So the voices that you get constantly are gonna be a combination in creativity of people that just super don't like you, and a combination of people who are you thought they were on your side, but then you realize that the issue they have with you is they thought they could have done it better, and so they want to tell you all the stuff you did wrong, and you're like, I mean, tell me more, bro.
Yeah. I want to see you do my job.
So it was an interesting one. I don't know if you're looking at Twitter right now. I hope people are like asking questions and stuff like that. But I mean, I guess we'll look at that in a minute. I guess maybe the big one is I did it because I felt really alone, honestly. There was no advice on how to do any of this stuff. And if you discover two things when you do creative stuff like this: first, that you're not alone, and second, that there's a lot of other people out there who have replicated some or all of the work that you've done. You just never knew they were out there. So on a lot of levels, what you're doing with some kind of creative project is you're reaching out into the universe and trying to find people who care about the same things. So maybe that's the answer to it. Was I wanted to know there was somebody else out there who cared about any of this stuff. And then I found out there are so many people that care deeply about having this done the right way. And most of them are amazing. And some of them are just, it's a tough issue to do something creative in a way that helps people and also understand that there's no way to avoid criticism and haters. Yeah, that.
I like it. It's I read your chapter, so talking a little bit about your personal life and how you kind of were homeschooled for a bit, but you were able to really take on whatever you wanted to do. Like you got to do activities that most kids would have never been able to do, which was fantastic. And especially when it came to selling blueberries, that was quite a fantastic story. How would you say, like, how did your mom and then how did your dad influence you who you are today?
They were all the part. I'm thinking, I'm not on a time delay.
Yeah.
And looking for the right way to convey the magnitude of the gift they gave me in the education is maybe the best way. The way that my parents let me choose how I was going to get educated totally spoiled me for standardized education for the rest of my life. And it makes me even see things a little differently. One of the greatest things was that my mom said, if you get all your work done for the year, you're done. You don't have to do anything. So she would give me my like language arts and math and science and everything like that. She'd give me my curriculum and say, no, come on, he's rubbing his face on the webcam. So she would give me all my curriculum and say, hey, do you get your stuff done and you can just do whatever you want the rest of the year. So I would get it done super fast. This, by the way, is Frankie Fangs.
Very adorable.
He's trying to rub his head, against the webcam I got over here. So yeah, probably a good start. So yeah, and then Dad, I think a lot of it was that they taught me things they didn't know they were teaching, like so many parents do. And one of the things Dad taught me when he was teaching me about compound interest was how to see the world in terms of expected utility, probability theory and choices. So a lot of the stuff that I do, when you look at someone's career in retrospect, it looks like it was always meant to be, right? And instead, actually what's happening is I'm going for 10 things I don't think I can get all of, and then I get 3 of them. And maybe the best way to put it is I've taken a shot at like 10 big deal things in the last 6 months. And I failed at 7. And so nobody sees the failures, right? Nobody sees that I got turned down for the job or the position or the fellowship or the grant or the trip or the prestigious what the hell ever or the article thing. No one sees any of that. They see the 3 things that I succeeded at and have no idea that I am a constant and majoritarian failure, right? And so Dad and Mom, I think, taught me a lot about being risk acceptant when it comes to finding choices about what you want to do next in your life, and then finding a way to enjoy the stuff that you have to do, right? So yeah, that's what they did.
I like it.
I don't know if I'm actually going to look at your Twitter real quick and just see if anybody's like looking at this or talking about it. There are mentions.
Probably check YouTube and see if there's any live questions.
I want to take a look at it too. I've got it on here. Tarah's audio is almost unlistenable. Lots of compression artifacts. Yeah, it's really helpful.
Do you have a headset?
I do. I'm going to switch over to the headset.
I'll switch over with you just in case. People say it echoes sometimes in my office because there's nothing in here really except for books.
Let's try this in seconds. Let's go select a microphone. It's going to be distinguished.
Boom.
Right. Microphone is going to be built-in mic, or rather same system, I guess. Right? Same system. Can you hear me really well?
Yeah, I can hear you. It's kind of coming in and out. Talking a little bit more.
1 second. Sound. Input is and turn the microphone. Testing. Might be a little bit better. Thanks for letting us know about that, Tom.
Yeah. Great. So Tarah, you had a good number of individuals that also participated in this book, and by creating chapters that share a little bit about their background, which I have to admit, it's extremely hard to write about your life in a few pages, but also not just that, but just writing about your life in a condensed form for people to be aware of, oh, these are some highlights you need to take away to understand me. And it's really nice to see that type of collaboration. And I was wondering, when you were thinking about creating this book, was it originally in your mind to also bring in all these other wonderful people at the same time?
There's a combination of a couple of things. And I hope you can hear me. I'm not sure if
it's way better. Way better.
Is it way better? Okay. So I got a built-in microphone that I'm doing right now, and I'm just checking that that it's working better. So when it comes to the people who contributed, there was a couple of things I wanted to do in my mind. First, I am a white, basically sort of straight woman who has experienced a lot of privilege as well as a lot of other issues in my life. I'm not going to be able to speak for all women in technology, but I had a broad enough experience that I could give people helpful information about how to get jobs. One of the big challenges that I saw was that I'm not going to have the experience of a woman of color or a trans woman or somebody who doesn't come from the United States, right? And so there was that piece of it, which is that I wanted to make sure that there were vignettes in there from other people. And so, I asked people to do maybe a 1,500 odd word, 2,000, 3,000 word, just sort of an autobiographical essay to tell a little bit about their own story. And I use that to pepper through the book with different perspectives than mine. So, and again, I'm just checking on this one. You're getting good sound from me right now? Okay, awesome. So I saw a couple of opportunities there, not only just to make sure that I was getting different audiences, but also that I was speaking from a position where I was listening to other people as well. There's also, let's be honest, in kickstarting a book like this, I couldn't get any attention from any publishers. It took being the most funded anthology project on Kickstarter of all time to get Penguin Random House to be like, hey, wait a minute, maybe there was something to that proposal. So that element of it was really important to me, I think. So it wasn't just that, it wasn't just kind of the marketing element of it, of making sure that this got to a lot of different people. It was also making sure that that I wasn't trying to, as I think many other women have done, express only what it's like to be the rich white lady in technology, because let's have more of those books. Yeah, that'd be great. So instead, what I wanted to do was actually give an expression of what it was like to have different pieces of this journey. And I had a varied enough career that I could give very specific advice on how to project yourself in job situations. And so that was the thing that I was bringing, was a specific skill set to putting this all together. So why did I include those kind of vignettes, the little autobiographical essays from these folks? I did it because I wanted to make sure that this was a book that could talk to everybody. And I think I did a good job of that. Now, I will note that there were a lot of people that, while I'll make sure that this got to a lot of different people, and there was some degree of strategy in that, there were some very angry women out there who thought that they belonged in this book. And most of them were investors in Silicon Valley. Believe it or not, there are a few women investors in Silicon Valley. A couple of them approached as I put a call out to do chapters in this, and in essence tried to buy their way in. And I was like, you know what? I'm going to go with the girl who won the Lego championship from Jamaica with 700 Twitter followers instead of you, because I think it's going to be more representative of the actual journey of most women in technology, rather than someone who, you know, has invested in a lot of different realms of the world and has ended up in technology but never touched a keyboard before, right? So I wanted to go in the direction of making sure that this was a book I was going to end up being proud of and not one that you could sort of buy your way into. And I'm happy about that. I'm happy about this as a piece of art. I also wanted to make sure that this was representative of people at different stages in their career. So what I tried to do was the vanity of this book is that it is a journey through technology, starting from, so you know how to write your first line in Python, all the way through, so now it's time to found a company and hire people. Here's how you do that, right? So all the way through the steps of a career. And I picked people very deliberately at different steps in their career who could talk to what it's like to get your first management job, what it's like to found your first company, what it's like to learn and then get your first job, right? So that's what I wanted to do with it. And I think it worked pretty well.
Well, I do know that a good number of people that are reading this book in the book club, some of them are actually like women that are trying to get into their first position or also to climb that ladder. And I really liked your part about resume. Like a resume is something that we don't really talk about as much, but we should, because if you know how to build a resume really well, you can actually get in a door a little bit better. And you had some really good takeaways. Do you mind sharing a little bit of overview about why you decided to make a chapter around resume? And what are some things that readers will be able to dive a little bit further into why a resume is important and what are some necessary things you need to do?
You know what I'm going to do? I'm just going to use one of the tools I've got at my disposal here on Zoom. Let's try this right here, .org. I'm going to show you a couple of things that I tell people about. Let me see if I can just
Excellent.
Get over to it. No, I want contact. There we go. Okay. Let me see if I can't share this right here. So I'll just share what I look at when I see my, so we got Safari right here. Awesome. Okay. So theoretically this should work and I should be broadcasting my resume on Zoom right now. Do you see this?
Yep.
Sweet.
I know your number now. Dun, dun, dun.
Everybody
No,
knows
I already know your number.
Dude, it's literally 1562. Hi, Tarah. I got this Google voice number for a reason. Like, feel free, spread it around. I don't care. This is on every one of my business cards. So, and it's on my website. Okay, so first thing you see is you got my name, you know who I am. Second, put a title on your resume. When you put a title on your resume, one of the things that happens is that people understand who you are and what you're looking for. Don't just start with experience. Give a summary. You can see that there are bullet points embedded in here, but one of the big things I tell people is your resume, no matter how amazing you are, unless you're in academia, can never be more than 2 pages long. Do stuff like this, right? Make sure that you've got the relevant positions that you've got, but you can see here several of the things that you need to know about how to build a resume. Get your publications, your talks and stuff like that. Make sure you've got your skill sets in here. You can always tell more about who you are to somebody. It should have stopped sharing just now. Yeah, good. Okay. You can always tell more about who you are to a hiring manager, but you will never get past the fact that you've got maybe 15 seconds to get somebody's attention when you pass them a resume for the first time. And the first thing they need to know is this the person I'm looking for? They're not interested in hiring you. They want to fill a gap, right? And that's true for everybody. That's literally true of the president of the United States. There's a little bit more of a gap there in the terms of the president of the United States than we would choose at the moment. But think of it this way. We've got to end up, I love that you're muted right now, but I feel like you'd be funny if you were laughing. So the thing we have to do to remember is that no matter how much I like you as a person, I have a job to do, and that job is I need a senior engineering manager. If someone sends me a resume that says objective, seeking interesting position where I fulfill my lifelong goal of being an awesome human being or whatever, I'm like, yay, great, tell me on YouTube. If someone sends me a resume that says senior engineering manager with 15 years of experience in developing Python with progressively responsible positions, I'm like, hello. Now you just got past 6 seconds. Now you're at 1.5 minutes, and we scan down. And I know that company. I've seen that company. I know Joe who works at that company right there. I'm calling Joe. Joe, what's up? It's Jane. I got a resume from Jane. Yeah, how is she? Is she cool? Is she, yeah, awesome. badass, not a problem, sweet, give her a call right now. That is literally how long it takes to hire somebody. And that's how quick that decision gets made. Jane now has a shot. Now, Jane, don't screw it up. Jane, return my phone calls. Jane, let me know you're interested in this thing. That's all I'm looking for, right? And you are in. You are just in. No one wants to spend time reviewing thousands of resumes. The HR system in cybersecurity is so broken, it's ridiculous. You're going to get so many people with resumes from Stanford and Carnegie Mellon, and God loves Stanford and Carnegie Mellon. I got some of my best friends have gone to, I mean, no, they really haven't. Like one of my best friends went to Carnegie Mellon. But anyway, so the nature of hiring is that fast. Get your title on there, make sure people know who you are, and make sure that Joe knows who you are at the company. I'm going to call to find out whether or not you left in a huff or not. That's all I need to know as a hiring manager. I know that almost nothing else will I know about this person until I've hired them and worked with them for a year, which is why Joe is the person you don't know is getting you that job. The person that I know at the company you used to work at. That's the story for resumes. The rest of it is all just don't misspell things because I get offended at that. Yeah.
Love it. So you also talked a little bit about like, if you're going to go for an interview, make sure you're dressed in a way that is appropriate.
Mm-hmm.
So I have seen like women come in with like a skirt suit outfit or ensemble, and like immediately you hear people talking about them and what they're wearing, and this is men and women doing.
Oh yeah.
And I like that you put in there like, don't go in there in a suit. No one goes in dressed up to the nines when you're going for an interview. However, the heel part was really important to mention, and I'm glad you did the height thing, because it's crazy how research has shown that if you're taller, you're going to make more money in the end at your job. So wearing like heels or platforms or anything like that is going to be really good. However, you know, don't wear like your 6-inch stilettos sometimes to your interview because people will judge you too. Women get judged for everything, always, from everyone. It's not just men, it's from women too.
Oh yeah.
Yeah.
Gross. I remember I was doing one of those things that I didn't fail at one of the things that I went for over the last couple of months, and I'll talk more about that in the future. But I remember I was doing a video interview for it, and I was doing prep questions and stuff like that with my friend, and I was like, girl, is it okay if I have this stuff up behind me right now? Should I take some of it down? Does it look too braggy if I have all my degrees up behind me right now? And she was like, no, seriously, leave them all up right now. Has a dude ever asked that question? And I was like, fine, but I am going to leave my GED up over John Wick's head. So I don't know. I think it worked pretty well. So yeah, John Wick has my back. Seriously.
That's great. Like, I'm pretty sure my mom, if she could, she would put a picture of Keanu Reeves somewhere in the house. She's like obsessed with this man. Like, she's like, this is, so a few weeks ago, I guess he was around the area. And so my mom's like, oh my God, Chloe, did you know Keanu Reeves was just in Alameda? And I'm like, I know he's always around here. Anyway, it's a Bay Area. He's always here. And she was like, but he was eating ice cream at the place that I go get ice cream. And I'm just like, I love you, Mom. Such an it's real. But she loves The Matrix, like it's her favorite movie of all time.
It's a cool mom you got there. All right. She's a cool mom, right? Yeah.
Yeah. She's pretty cool.
It's not Wednesday. Even on Wednesday, I don't want cake. But yeah. No.
But I liked your comment a little bit earlier about, you know, sometimes I also catch myself where I ask a question and sometimes it's like, do you think a man ever asked that question? And it's true. Most of the time they don't. Like, should I not have my degrees behind me? But honestly, the one thing I learned at a very early age was you're going to constantly get pressure and issues because of your gender. You're always going to be seen as the person who can't be the executive because of biases and whatnot. But by having some degrees behind you, or like having degrees from various different universities, it shows that you're capable of doing this. Of course, this isn't always the same approach like in InfoSec, because I believe the best hackers out there honestly don't have certifications, and that's okay.
They may or may not, but they're irrelevant whether or not.
They're irrelevant. Yeah. And it all depends on like what your goal is. And by knowing, and that's the one thing you do talk about in the book, is like, if you know what job you're aiming for, then you have to become that persona. You're going to have to do certain things that are going to be different, and you're showcasing different people's perspectives in where they are, what kind of job they have. Is it management? Is it an analyst? Is it a red team or whatnot? Is really beneficial at the end for everyone to have a good idea of what to do and how to be aware of these certain situations.
It is. And the capacity to teach people, I have found, often comes better from somebody who didn't come up in a standard sort of environment, right? If you've always been taught, if you've never been the person who was waiting tables and teaching community college classes and doing whatever, you sometimes don't have that kind of varied experience that lets you be somebody that can figure stuff out that is weird, right? That hackers have to figure out things that are weird all the time, and thinking about things orthogonally helps a great deal. Security certifications are wonderful, especially if you're going to learn something from them. And some of the best teaching in the world is out there in standardized testing and standardized classes like SANS and stuff like that. But there's no substitute for the curious mind. And the curious mind is demonstrated by a lot of different things. And you get that sense from someone quickly when you see who they are as a person. So I don't know. I think the question of whether or not you're too much, I have by a long shot reached that point where you decide as a human being if you're going to be likable or authoritative. And when I say human being, I mean woman, because men don't have to choose between those two things. I chose, and I chose very deliberately. Guess what? Don't like me. Fine. But you're going to listen. And once I'm done making sure people are listening, then I can worry a little bit more about whether or not I was likable. My husband likes me. My cat thinks I'm swell. At a certain point, you just have to be fine with the notion that people are not going to like you. And that is an incredibly difficult thing for women to understand, that choice is going to come up. And it's not a social choice. It's an economic one. You are choosing economically whether or not you want to be a likable person. There's your CMO track, right? If you want to be likable, that's how women get to the C-suite. If you're in a situation where you've ceased caring whether or not somebody finds you likable or not, that's how you end up as the CEO, right? That's how you end up in a position where you're making decisions people won't like you for. And I saw some statistics. There's so much correlation that people mistake for causation when it comes to things like women's success in the boardroom, right? The stats that are out there are very clear. Women in C-suite positions are more effective than men are, statistically, in the same position. They just are. Go look at every stat out there, peer-reviewed from Harvard Business Review. And
especially on spending.
Like, what's that?
Especially around spending. We never really go over budget. We always stay within budget. We really think it through. Like,
every single one of them. And the correlation there is, do you know how much better those women had to be to get to that point? It's not that there's some kind of gender essentialism involved here. We know that women can be just as stupid as men, believe me. It's just that when you get to that point, you've had to do so much more to get there that you're just flat better on average. And that is not, like, can you imagine a world where you take the skills and passion and joy of like a queer Black woman in the United States who's got executive capacity? She would run the world, right? Like this, what a woman like that has to go through to get to a leadership position. Well, I think we can see, because I'm looking in my head right now for Fortune 100 queer Black women in the C-suite position. I'm not coming up with too many, right? So you just get to a certain point, and then people just can't see you in a leadership role anymore. What does that mean? The number of people who said, you know, Warren has the best plans. She's clearly the most qualified, but there's just, like, she starts talking and there's just something I just don't like her. And do not tell me right now that Liz Warren did not make that choice between being authoritative and being likable. She had to go back and bolt on likability, like Schneider says we have to bolt security on aftermarket for most products, right? She had to bolt her likability on with the beer and the Bailey and everything like that. I don't want her to be likable. I want her to solve the problems of this world. She doesn't have time to be likable. Be mean. Kill it. Oh my God, solve everything happening right now. And we don't free women to do that. We don't free them to be mean, to be not likable, to be authoritative, to yell, to go on a tear if they need to. Maybe that's what the problem is.
It's hard because like for women we get it from, we get it from men and women, and it's there was a report that came out recently. I tweeted out from The Guardian that it was 9 out of 10 people have negative bias beliefs about women. And that means women also having these. And women in certain countries, women still think it's okay for the man to abuse the woman. It's still, women still have a hard time seeing other women having executive positions or being in the political ring. And these are really sad things because I think there was like another statistic that came out that we're not going to have probably equality for another 200 plus years at the rate we're going, especially with the pay gap. And it's really unfortunate because like the fact that we have to actually talk about what we wear when going to an interview. And that's one of the things, like for men, it's like you can walk in with anything and they don't care. But as women, it matters completely. And that's regardless of all the genders that are watching. We did get a question about networking because the coronavirus is going around. A lot of conferences are canceling or rescheduling at this time, or events as well. So one of the questions they had is how should one network or find a job right now at this point? Because everything's kind of shut down, it feels like.
This is, I was actually thinking a lot about the same kind of thing. I'm an introvert, so my idea of heaven is being shut in my house for 8 weeks with enough time to write things, right? But there's a lot of people out there who are not in that position socially or financially or professionally. And one of the things that I had thought about, I was starting to really actually bend my mind to this, especially after I was having a conversation with some family members, those of my family who are in kind of the gig economy or who have clients, in-person clients for things, whatever their businesses are really kind of, they're dealing for the first time with how do I provide services virtually? How do I connect with my clients? The questions are always the same, right? That there is something meaningful about being in person with someone that lets you make a connection to them. First of all, if you're somebody who is just trying to figure out the job market right now, God bless your heart. Second of all, you've got a little bit of time here, which means you can be creative. I'm not looking for a job right now. I've got other stuff that I have to do for the next year, and I probably won't be in a situation where I could look for something like a full-time job until next year, right? Early next year. And so I'll probably start in August. I'll just be straight honest with you. I'll start in August. I'll have some conversations with people, and I may or may not take a position starting in 2021 doing some stuff. But the first thing I'll do is I'll go in person with someone and have conversations. I always do conversations, job interviews, always interview whenever you get the chance to, over video if you can, instead of over a phone call. And the reason for that is as we get more and more comfortable with online work, that means more and more work is going to be moving to online. And if you can demonstrate yourself as someone who is a video chat native, you're going to be at an incredible advantage right now. Demonstrate that by doing, like you're watching me do it right now. I'm getting used to the notion for the first time that I would do more and more broadcasting of like me on the internet. I'm used to being a written word and not a face on a screen. And I like being the written word. I like writing a great deal. But I'm trying to get more used to this idea. And so if you are somebody who is networking and looking for a job right now, try starting your own little mini conference. I love what John Strand at Wild West Hackin' Fest is doing by moving the conference virtual, by saying this is what we've got going on, by providing separate chat rooms, by doing broadcasts. I love that. I actually had a conversation with, so my husband runs a pen test company. He runs a covert entry team, and he's teaching a class right now in Virginia. And I was having a conversation with him and I said, babe, we said we would never run a conference, right? And he said, yeah, are you insane? And I said, but remember that all of the stuff we hate involves the stuff that happens in person. What if we didn't have to worry about a venue and all we did was we just invited a bunch of our friends to do stacked talks and have conversations and like do a chat all day long and do a virtual conference? And he was like, I still think you're insane. And I said, but hear me out. I feel like it'd be a lot of fun. So if you want to be somebody who connects with people, find a way to do some of this. Start a Pomodoro writing group with some of the friends that you've got. do informational interviews. All of the recruiters at every big company right now are starved for numbers. They don't have any interviews. Everyone's got to cancel all of their travel. And that includes everyone who was booked for interviews this week and for the next 2 months. Get on a Zoom call or broadcast something to YouTube and say, hey, I'm gonna broadcast me doing an informational interview with whatever recruiters want to show up, and I want to do a live stream of it. Go. Right? Like, get creative in that way, and you're gonna have so many cool things come your way. Take advantage of this fact right now. Demonstrate you're somebody who's comfortable doing this kind of remote work. See what happens. Does that make sense?
Completely. I mean, I think you and I, we both work from home majority of the time. So we're like, the conferences is the time when we actually get out and about and like see everyone and everything like that. So yeah, if anyone's thinking about doing some virtual conferences, that'd be great. So we can all meet each other and hang out and like have some fun. And you get to see animals too, like this wonderful cat. This is very cute.
Frankie. Hi, buddy. What you doing?
I got a carpet recently, and let's just say Sherlock destroyed the crap out of it. She's like a cat. She's on the thing. She's like, oh, just scratch. Oh my God. It's so bad. I always wanted a cat, dog, and one that looks like
a Pomeranian. Pomeranian's a cat and dog. Just get a Pomeranian.
Yeah, well, she's a Shiba, so she's a tricky little one. She's got a personality. She doesn't care. She does her own thing, and she'll hang out. She's like a cat. It's like, I'm like, come, let's cuddle, and then she'd be like, no, I'm not feeling like it. Or I call her name, she looks at me, or she'll pretend she doesn't hear anything. But if I say the word treat, she comes running. It's like, I get what I get, but it's good because she's very independent. She's like, oh, I'm going to be all independent now for the rest of everything. So it's great. Kids just need a lot of attention. It's fantastic.
Wow. I'm processing a lot of this, and we're going to have a weird and different world. Nobody look at your stock portfolio right now. You're completely hosed.
No, retirement.
For like a week and a half. Just give you so much agita, which is a word I learned from marrying somebody who is from New Jersey. So Philadelphia, kind of New Jersey area. And so I'm a West Coast girl, and I try to imagine what it must be like for my friends in marriages with people of other nationalities from other languages, because I'm like, I can barely understand him most of the time when he's talking. He's ordering like a cheesesteak in Philly or something like that. So agita is one of the awesome words I learned from my New Jersey Italian American husband.
I love it. Steven's awesome. Okay. So I was watching the news yesterday, and they're like, so tell us, what should we do about our stocks and our portfolios right now? Should we take money out? What should we do? And then the person's like, just like we were telling everyone with their health, don't touch your face, don't touch your accounts. I thought that was like, okay.
No, it's super good. I love that one. Yeah. And this is actually comes to some more interesting stuff. And it is about kind of women in technology, but women sort of in general as they have conversations. One of the, I've talked to some women at this point and who've done well in technology, and they're first generation people to kind of do well in their families. And I haven't done as well as they have, but for the first time I remember asking for the first time, how do you buy a stock? I don't know no one ever taught me how to buy a stock. And I remember I once got like a little bit of stock from a job that I was at, and I walked into an E-Trade and I said, how do I sell this? And the guy on the street, I think, because I was dressed like a tech worker, so I think he thought I was, like on the street or something like that. And he just looked at me, and I think he was trying to figure out if I was like not well mentally, because when you're in this world, you kind of understand it. So the notion that women are going to be people who control not just the buying power of a household, but the capacity to affect the stock market is new for a lot of the United States, right? And so the idea that women are making financial decisions in tech companies, it needs to be a thing that we start getting more comfortable with, and we need to start teaching women how to handle it. So there are a lot of women who are turning into the alpha earners for their homes for the first time, and they've never done things like plan for retirement. I never thought I was going to retire anyway. I probably won't anyway, but it never occurred to me that there would be a point at which you could stop working and you wouldn't be paycheck to paycheck. Like clearly I dropped out of a lot of high schools. Well, I got thrown out of one sort of. And so the idea that you kind of get to this place where you can like make plans for money 6 months from now is mind blowing to me on kind of this individual level. It's been, you know, decades since I was in this position, and it still blows my mind. And I wonder how much of the thing you and I were just discussing in terms of women owning P&Ls at big companies has to do with the fact that many of them are just like, shh, nobody in my family's ever done this before, and I want to get it right. Right. So I wonder how much of it is that. Anyway, yeah, I think that maybe has some of it to do with it. And I think a lot of women are going to be fine with just like, I'm just not looking. I bought toilet paper. I'm good. That's it.
I got my hand sanitizer, I got my toilet paper. I'm set. Yeah, don't forget your sanitary products too, ladies. Just putting it out there. Those are going off the shelves too now.
Seriously?
Yeah. Yeah, I went to Target and I was just like, wait, what? Oh, the joy.
Just imagining like all these cashiers going, are you okay, girl?
It's like, do you need to go see a doctor? Like,
no, thank you.
Normal,
I'm good.
right?
I'm good right now. Nope.
You can't avoid all times.
Get out.
Oh my God. Oh.
Wow.
Okay, question for you.
Oh yeah, go ahead.
So being in the office, since we're talking about sanitary products, did you ever like hide your like tampons or pads or whatnot in your sleeves, your pockets when going to the bathroom at work so no one would know?
This is a really interesting question. I remember I remember going, I've never worked at Google, but I interviewed there in person one time in the San Francisco offices. And I remember walking into the San Francisco offices of Google, and the girls' bathroom was a wonderland of like product selectivity and hand lotion and hairspray and Midol and domestic abuse resources and soft and cuddly toilet paper. And I was like, oh, y'all have me sold, just like walking in here. And it was a whole thing, but I remember going in there for the first time. Anybody who's ever been to the Google bathrooms in like San Francisco, they're magical.
Amazing.
They're
it's
a magical
place.
Yeah. And then I went into a company that I will not name where the bathroom was like industrial junior high chic. And I walked in there and it was gray, and like one of the fluorescent lights was like blink, blink, like it's the start of a horror movie, you know, like the first, like the intro to it. And I'm looking around and like the doors are that like horrible scraped beige paint, and the toilets like got a cigarette burn and crap. And I was like, I'm exaggerating with the cigarette burn, not exaggerating about anything else. I'm just projecting from the last time I was in a pub in the UK, I guess, maybe. Anyway, so I get in there and I look around, and it's like, you're like, the overhead lighting in here alone makes me want to scream and run for the doors. And it started to make me really realize there are companies that genuinely do and don't care about having women in the office. I ended up taking a job at a company at one point where the bathroom was sort of a medium between those two things. It wasn't terrifying horror show, but it also wasn't the happy Google bathroom with the chintz curtains kind of a thing. And I remember having a conversation there with my boss, who was a VP of stuff. And I said, has anybody ever considered just like stocking the bathroom, the women's bathroom, so that it looks like, you know, the one at Google? And he said, that's a great idea. That's absolutely something we should talk to the recruiters about. And I remember thinking to myself, the first thing he thought of was that the cuddly focused facing, the cuddly kind of public facing, very woman heavy division of the company would be the ones who would be in charge of making sure that that kind of thing happened, and not that it was his responsibility to make it a situation where women were welcome there. Does that make any sense?
You know,
he cared. I was embarrassed to bring it up, but I was like, why do you think it's a lady problem instead of a you problem with your efficiency numbers?
Exactly. So any men that are watching this, and ladies, if you do not have tampons in the bathroom or pads or whatnot, you should really talk to your employer, and don't be like,
and not the paper wrapped weird cardboard ones that are awful that they stock everywhere. No, don't
do it. Proper, don't charge your employees either, because there are some like companies Yeah, they will charge you for
25
like
cents because I carry
25
quarters
cents.
in my purse anymore, right?
Right. So
God.
honestly, if you care, so anytime someone asks me about diversity and inclusion question, I always want to ask them this one question, which is like, do you stock up your bathroom with tampons and pads? Because most ladies need it at some point. I mean, good toilet paper, good paper towels, soap, yes. Tampons and pads are a necessity to
And
have in the bathroom.
let's be inclusive too. You know, some men menstruate, so let's make sure that we're aware that there are a lot of different genders and different gender expressions and physical needs. And maybe the question here shouldn't be, why don't we have tampons in the bathroom that aren't a quarter that you put into the weird twisty machine? You take a piece of toilet paper and like turn that little knob with it because it's, you know, that's gross, right? And
Oh, it's so good.
you be asking the question, not what is the leadership supposed to be doing in a situation like this, but why hasn't the leadership already seen that problem? And when you see a company that doesn't hit that tipping point of women in representation, especially for people in minorities at a certain level, you end up saying to yourself, they're not going to get it right with me if they didn't with the 100 women before me, right? That's the real thing that you're saying to yourself when you see something like that. You look around and you're like, they haven't heard anybody say anything about this problem because no one was ever at a senior enough level to make it stick, so to speak, given our conversation.
Yeah. And go with another person and bring it up. You don't have to do it by yourself if you feel uncomfortable, because I know what it's like to suddenly bring up a woman issue and then to be called a feminist in a very negative way. So
Yeah.
been there.
You're home alone cooking and bare feet with my cat, does it?
Do you still get those messages like, why aren't you focused on like being married, having kids, and cooking and baking, because that's a woman's place? Have you gotten those?
So I don't get those messages. I get not anymore. Some members of my family. I don't get those messages anymore. And a lot of it has to do with the fact that I went for authoritative instead of likable. Likable women get those messages. Authoritative women get told to get off the internet, bitch. So I don't get messages because no one views me as someone who would be likable enough to have children or stay at home or do things, even though I'm a really good cook. Ask my husband, it's part of why he married me.
So I'm coming to Seattle. I'm going to come visit.
Well, I got straight up, I'm just a pretty good cook. I'm just closing the window so the garbage guy doesn't whack things outside the window. I don't get those messages. I get different messages. No, we all get really unhelpful messages. You know, the one that I get that I don't like, you're too fat.
Which one?
Because that's relevant. Oh yeah, constantly.
Oh.
You're too fat, like you're too ugly, which empirically that's not true. I am so pretty. So the nature of the messages are intended to tear down at the things that people think you care about, your body image, your physical appearance, stuff like that. That's what you get at a certain point. Women that are 25 years older than me get erased because they're 65, and there's a point at which our society no longer really registers women, I think, anymore. And so you kind of like migrate into a land where you knit and make cookies or something. I don't know. I knit and make cookies now, and I make really good cookies. So the nature of getting those messages is going to change based on where people find you. If you're getting messages that say, don't get above yourself, you're not better than me, and who do you think you are? You're probably doing your career right?
Yeah.
Yeah. If people are tearing you down because they want to be you, rock and roll, girl. So and maybe look at those messages as the mirror universe, the bizarro world of it. It doesn't make it a compliment. It doesn't make it okay. And this is not some kind of, well, he only teases you because he has a crush on you. This is not what that is. It just lets you calibrate a little bit about what people find intimidating or frightening about you. And intimidating and frightening is another way to say they don't know how to bucket you in a way that lets them forget you.
I like that. Yeah, I have to admit, the one thing I've definitely seen is that I haven't been really torn apart by guys. I have at the very beginning of my career in InfoSec. Mm-hmm. And then it changed dramatically last year, where I started getting it more from women. Mm-hmm. And so like one of the things I do know is that there are someone that you do reach out to me and they're like, I don't know what to do with this situation. These
Mhm.
women are spreading gossip about me, or they're being catty. I hate using that term catty, but it's what we say. Um, and I always tell them like, well, then you're doing the right things, to be honest. That's what comes with it. And it's very hard to have that conversation with people saying like, well, I hate to break it to you, but no one's perfect, and you've been pushed in a situation where you have to come off as if you are perfect because of the way you look, and you're just going to have to accept that people are not going to always like you, and there's reasons for why they do, but usually it's personal for themselves.
Mhm.
And I mean, I still deal with that. I still don't know how to deal with it, to be honest, but I mean, I just try to remind myself that people have their own issues and sometimes they'll push it on you.
They will. And I've never found a good solution to that, mostly because it's not my problem to solve, which is that's a hard lesson to learn over time.
Oh
Um,
yeah.
and there are severe and serious economic consequences for it. It doesn't take a lot of people to tear someone down. And I've seen some, like, I feel like Roy Batty in Blade Runner. I've seen things you wouldn't believe at this point when it comes to people who genuinely, deeply, truly believe that you must have done something wrong to get where you are. Because if you didn't, how could they, with all of their effort, not have gotten as far as you by then? And I've seen things you wouldn't believe about people's ways of twisting their minds into believing somehow that you must have done something wrong or unethical or illegal or strange or inappropriate. And so they'll start from the assumption that you're a terrible person. And when you look at someone and you start from that assumption, everything they do appears menacing and vicious and wrong, right? But if you start with a mental model that the people that you're talking to or the person you're thinking about pretty much basically is just like you, they've got to eat, they're tired, they're scared of the coronavirus, you know, they don't know if they're going to hit their miles runs this year, you know, they're busy trying to figure out their next talk, they're not telling you how much of their work they haven't gotten quite done in time for the conference, you know, and they're all deeply afraid that people will realize how little they know about security. If you start from that perspective, you can come from a place of compassion. And coming from that place of compassion is the only sane way I've seen to do any of this. So, and I'd make a
Yeah.
crack right now about, you know, don't drink too much at conferences until you have to meet people, in which case it's probably a pretty good idea. But, you know, this community is riddled with mental health issues, with fear, with depression, and those things just magnify those problems, I think, over time, right?
Yeah, there's a lot of negativity also in the field. So, most times I have conversations with people like the world is such a bleak place. It's such a dark place. I'm like, yeah, it can be, but there's also some good. And just remember that. And it's very hard when you're dealing with like anxiety or depression, whatnot, because it's already kind of crazy world around you. But trying to reinstate, like, no, there are some good people there. There are these people that will have your back and try to be there. It can be very difficult sometimes.
Mm-hmm. I want to find that joy in a lot of different things. And,
Yeah.
you know, so that's why I chose a career describing cyberwar to policymakers.
Seems about right. Yeah.
Yeah, totally. I remember when I was doing my PhD work, I used to tell people I work on international warfare and conflict studies because American politics are too depressing. I was not wrong. I was just ahead of my time. So this is, you know, the nature of the job that we've got now. But I do embroidery. I've got a cat. I'm happy. I've got a great bike. You know, I get to do fun stuff that I love. Um, One of the things I feel like I emphasize it at least somewhat in my book, but here's some real shit for you. I am not married to the person that I was married to when I wrote that book. And that is a thing that, you know, we kind of allied over a lot of the time. And I describe, I think I'm proud, I think, of the balance that I struck between describing some of the difficulties in figuring out what you do when the expectations are so severe on women for things like having a clean house and being a good hostess, but also you need to do 12 hours in, you know, the quarterlies for the day to hit your numbers, right? Can't put up rookie numbers, you gotta have good numbers. And those expectations, and I described, I think, then some of the tensions you feel, and I tried to keep it kind of, I think, bland, but there's just no doubt that the reason I'm married to the person that I am married to now has to do with the way that I want to live my life, the choices that I want to make, and the support I need to have from a partner. When you choose, there's one thing Sheryl Sandberg got so right in Lean In. The single most important decision you will ever make is the person that you marry, or is your incredibly long-term partner. I'm not talking about 5 years, 6 years, 7 years. I'm talking about whoever you're going to be with for a lifetime. That person is the most important career decision you will ever make in your life. I have been supported and lifted up by my current partner in a way that I cannot believe. We're tech fluent, and it helps a lot that as we travel away from each other, we've got Zoom calls, right? We can see each other, we got signal calls. We can see each other, we can communicate. We found a way to make technology part of our vocabulary. But yes, ladies, if you demand a partner who is supportive, who will put your career in front of your own, those people exist. They do not exist in the proportion that you would wish them to. You are very lucky if you find one. If you don't find one, don't marry the wrong one. Not if you care about your career, not if you want to succeed. I don't have children. I don't watch appointment television. There's a lot of stuff that I don't do in my life, and I'm an introvert. There's a reason I look like I get a lot of stuff done. It's because I'm sitting right here and I don't have childcare to worry about, right? So the choices that we make about who we want to be are affected by our spouse, by our larger society, the fact that the United States doesn't have mandated parental leave. And I don't just mean maternal leave, right? We have got a culture where everything imaginable is stacked against you. And you may end up making hard choices about the life you want to live, but I am here to tell you that no partner is better than the wrong partner. No partner at all is better than the wrong partner. Have a cat, have friends, have a life, be challenged, create things. I was happier alone than I was with the wrong partner. I am happiest with a partner that nobody else gets to have. You keep your mitts off of it. But, but I'm happiest with the partner who is wonderful. But I would be okay without him. I would be happy and filled with joy and able to do the stuff that I love to do. He's a power up to my life. He's not my life, right? So
that's an important distinction for a good, healthy relationship.
Does that make any sense? Like
Oh yeah,
I questions about this, but I also don't want to put you on the spot right now because I don't know like what are your feelings about that?
Well, for me, it's more of like, so because I travel a lot often, and also because I do work a lot, I'm passionate about the work I do. I love doing work in the community, trying to make it a better place. And so the partner in my life will have to match that, and also will have to be okay with not, and that's one of the issues that I have, which is like the person's going to have to kind of allow me to have my career and to support, and not tell me that I need to take a step back and I can keep moving forward. And I think that's really important, because I think for women, we're kind of used to be like, oh, okay, I'm with this guy. He travels often for work. He's going to put his career ahead of our relationship at times, and that's okay. But when a woman's doing that, it can be a little bit hard. So that's the one thing I have noticed. But
it can lead to midlife divorce is what it can do.
Yep, exactly. But yeah, and I think the most important thing is whoever you end up with, make sure you pick someone who's going to have your back through the ups and downs, especially if you really want to climb that ladder, or if you want to make a difference in this world. You've got to have someone who has your back. And this is very obvious with Tarah and Deviant's relationship. They have each other's back, and they support each other in their career and in their relationship. So look for that, ladies and gentlemen.
Here, here. Yeah.
And get a cat.
Gentlemen, you keep your mitts off him too. I know how cute he is.
He's all yours.
Oh man, you know, there's too much there to keep him all to myself. He's a fabulous person, and he spills over with joy and kindness for people. And maybe just I would be his friend, and I would hope he would be my friend, even if we weren't in a romantic relationship. He's just a cool person, right?
Yeah, yes.
So I love just the inspiration that he is to people, and that is wonderful. It's also that he is we have complementary things that we care about. And so I don't want to turn this into just like a conversation that is a payee into, you know, my fabulous husband while we're having a conversation with literally women in the title. But maybe the question here is, if there's any one thing I think I have to get across to people, it is that question of likability versus authoritativeness. You're gonna make a choice between those two things, and you are gonna opt for those things. And it's gonna be the same level of change in your life that choosing to have your career come first in your relationship will be in your relationship and your life. The level of choosing between authoritative and likable, which is not a choice men have to make, is the biggest choice that you're gonna make in your career right after whether or not you marry the right person or not. So, I mean, I guess figure that out. And if you don't like that and you don't like me saying that, deal with it. It's true. I'm right.
Yeah. It's a...
My cat's staring at me right now like, she's not right.
She's not right. I'm telling you.
I've seen things you wouldn't believe. Catnip everywhere. Oh.
Catnip everywhere. And here I am with Sherlock is just destroying my brand new carpets. I'm like, she doesn't destroy anything else. She never destroyed a shoe. She doesn't do any of that. She just destroys brand new carpets that are very nice. Always the nice things.
I'm getting a couple of people have actually mentioned, and I was just looking at the chat thing on YouTube here. This is really, really great. One of the things that I think, Tim Schumann says +1 on compassion and self-forgiveness. And there's this concept of luck in Western civilization. It's a really great way to think about it. But that concept of self-forgiveness, that it was Tim Schumann in the comments that just brought that up. And thank you, Tim, for that. Self-forgiveness is really built into that kind of risk acceptance that it's so hard for women to kind of practice as a career practice. Practice it like yoga, right? You practice risk acceptance in your career like you practice like meditation or, you know, having a green smoothie for breakfast, which is like none of those things am I good at. But I do practice that risk acceptance, and with that concept has to come that self-forgiveness, that compassion towards yourself. I think, you know, Deviant's the only person here who sees like the wretched hatred I have of failure, but there's a lot of joy that comes in when you ratchet your career up and you get something you never thought you could get. Those two things are mirror images of each other. And the only way that you get to the place where you can go for things that people might tell you no for is if you can forgive yourself for not being perfect all the time when you try for stuff. You will never create the perfect application. You will never give the perfect interview. You will never make the exact right choice. Nothing you ever do will be perfect. And yet there's a higher price empirically, statistically for women for failure. There just is, economically, on every level. So figuring out how to forgive yourself for not being perfect, you know, if you need to, let's think about it this way. If you're going to apply for 10 things, you want to write an article, you want to get a fellowship, you want to get a job, you want to be, you know, a mentor at your local meetup for young women starting out in technology, and you write 10 cover letters for those things. And maybe, you know, 10 cover emails, basically. Here's my resume. I want to do this thing. I'm super interested because of this. And I know, you know, Karen and Rashad at your organization, they can totally tell you I'm pretty good at what I do and I'd love to help out, or something like that. I'd be honored to take this position. I'd do whatever. You write 10 of those, and all of a sudden you realize you need to take those 10 stabs at it, and your choice is 97% perfect and out the door, or never done. And the 3% right there between 97% perfect and not done, that right there, that's what we're beating ourselves up over when we get rejected, right? Because perfect is something you can't see and no one will ever tell you. And most of the people who are making decisions about your future, first, don't know you, and second, are making it based on criteria you will never see and can't affect. So we're busy like hating on ourselves for failing something that we can't, a target we can't even see, right? You know, you're shooting at a target, you don't even know where the bullseye is. You've just been told east, right? So do your best on 10 different things and be thrilled you got 2 or 3 of them. But don't go for that one thing. Don't be that kid who spends their entire academic career, junior high, high school, all of it, trying to get into Harvard, and their life falls apart if they don't. You know why? go for 8 Ivy League schools, go for 5 more awesome R1 universities, and then try for like 2 of the weird universities in Europe. And I'm here to tell you, your life will be better when you go to the weird university in Europe where they teach you like, I don't know, finger painting in 17 languages, right? And you learn how to code in, I don't know, primary colors or something like that. Who the hell knows, right? And you learn another language while you're doing it. Get a different life than you thought you were going to. All the stuff that I do right now is probabilistic. I'm not driving towards a point I can see. I don't have a specific goal in mind. I have a place I want to end up, and there are multiple roads to get there. Your career is not like you are on a plane from San Francisco to New York. Your career is like you're in a car from San Francisco to New York. There's 17 thunderstorms, four of the passes are blocked, and they've got family that you've got to route through Texas to see, right? That's what your career is going to be like. Make the choices that are fun then too, and stop for the roadside attractions. Eat the hot dogs. There's really good fried chicken at gas stations in Nebraska. Swear to God. Every Nebraskan gas station has incredible fried chicken. There. Like, that's all the wisdom
new
I've got.
lesson of the day.
That's all the wisdom I've got.
Takeaway right there.
And if you get
Fried
lost,
chicken.
Go back to the place you knew you were supposed to go from and then go a different way. You'll be fine.
Yeah, it's okay to not be perfect, and just note that you do not have full control of your life. And once you kind of realize that you cannot plan everything out and just accept it, you could do whatever you can, but just know it might not always work.
Yeah.
I think that like accepting that and knowing that if you have anxiety in life, it really helps. I used to get panic attacks because I moved to the UK, and then last minute, my visa, they changed the policies on the visa. So if you're a student, you would have to leave 1 month right after your studies. And I used to thought that like, oh no, I sold everything. I took everything with me and I'll be there for like 2 years or more to the rest of my life, maybe in the UK. And I just thought I would have more time. And it turns out in the middle of my school year, towards the end, I found out that they're changing everyone's visa. Not like, oh, this will be applied the following year. No, it was like applied immediately.
Wow.
And my whole life got changed because I planned everything out to the T, and nothing worked a way it was supposed to. So I had panic attacks for a good number of years afterwards because I was still trying to understand what's happening. Like, why am I feeling this way? Because you cannot plan your entire life out. And that's the hardest part, is to know that you cannot be perfect. It's an impossibility, and don't need to strive to an impossibility. Just find who you are, be comfortable with who you are, and do whatever you can to do that. And if people don't accept you for who you are, then they're not people you want to be around anyway. There's always going to be people that are going to criticize you. Even if you're doing some incredible work or good things in this world, you will always be criticized. And it's up to you whether or not you want to take some of that in, if it's helpful, or if it's just plain being you being mean. And that's the hard thing. I think, Tarah, you're also trying to point to those points as well. But yeah.
And I remember when I first physically saw this show up in my hands, and why it mattered to me that I did it. And the answer is, I can still go back into this thing and think to myself, I was way smarter half a decade ago when I wrote this, because I still have no idea what I'm doing. What is the next thing I'm supposed to be doing here, right? No one knows. No one knows what they're doing. All we're doing is, this is less a piece of advice and more just a reminder to myself every day when I look at it that, that I was fumbling my way towards figuring out what needed to happen. I fixed a lot of stuff about myself writing this. This is therapy, basically, right? And I think a lot of the best advice books out there, or career books or self-help books, really kind of are. They're us figuring stuff out as we go, and hopefully letting you watch that process, because it's not about giving somebody advice. It's about giving them the tools that let them do what they need to do. And this is always supposed to be about that, about giving somebody the tools. And I am angry that the conversation hasn't changed yet. The conversation is still, how do we fix women so that they will be able to succeed in a man's world? And I tried so hard to strike a balance between, look, you can't fix the world. The only thing you can change is you right now. And also be aware, none of this is fair. You shouldn't have to do any of the stuff I'm saying. In fact, feel free to burn this and go protest outside some tech company's office. I don't care. Please go, sister. But the only thing we can really affect on an individual level is just us inside ourselves, to give ourselves those tools. And so if I was going to say anything to men and not to women, you already know all the stuff that everybody thinks is wrong with you. Do what you think you need to do. Like, I'm here, tweet at me, tell me I'm wrong. I'll try to offer some thoughts. But this is not about women, and it never has been. It's about the fact that people who have privilege don't see it. I don't know what privilege I experience because I'm not a woman of color, but I've got some idea of it just by watching the variation between what I see in the world compared to me and the white men that I see running tech companies and the way that they're received in the world. And if the variance between what I see, between what's fair and what I'm allowed to do between those people is as wide between me and a woman of color as it is between me and those white men running tech companies, then like I can't process that, right? The only thing that I can do is perpetually attempt to raise the voices up of women of color, of queer people, of underrepresented minorities in technology. Because if the variance is that great in terms of privilege expectations, I can't process that. All I can do is try to help, basically. So this is a message really to men. I don't ever want to hear another man tell me that we need to teach women how to negotiate to get better salaries. Pay them the fucking same. Do it now. I don't care if you don't think I'm likable. Do it. That's it. That's literally it. Pay them the same. If you're trying to figure out why 2 of your reports right now are being paid differently, and your idea of fixing the problem is sending the woman to a negotiation class, get the hell out of my industry. There.
Also, if you're trying to hire anyone to talk about inclusion and diversity, please don't pick a white male. Just don't do it.
If the D&I
especially if it's an older white male, please don't do it. It happens so much in InfoSec. It drives me up the wall. Like, yeah, and then forcing everyone in your office to participate in this. Yeah, people are not going to be happy.
So there's a hard thing, and I want to draw out a little nuance there. And I got like about, I think, 5 more minutes here before I got to head to another meeting where I'm doing very, very important things. Probably, I think I could take my cat to the bed or something. There's an important nuance here, which is that we say we don't want nothing but white men talking about diversity and inclusion at the exact same time I'm saying, white men, this is your problem to solve. There's a difference between being the person who is out front of a diversity and inclusion initiative as a white male in a company who doesn't understand what's happening and why.
Exactly.
And have these experiences and being someone solving the problem. The answer in terms of solving the problem doesn't mean that you get to be the person running the cheerful, happy Twitter account and is the face of a campaign where you get to market yourself. No, you get to do the painful and hard thing of shutting up and promoting women over men. That's literally it. Shut up, promote women over men. That's what we mean when we say it is men's problem to solve. It doesn't mean you get to take the spotlight away from people who have worked hard to craft a message. And it certainly does not mean that what you need to do every time you have a diversity and inclusion issue is pass the mic or like drop a mic on top of the nearest underrepresented minority and say, you know more about this than I do. How about you step in front of the mic for a while and talk about it? Recognize that the problems we're having are social, yes, but at their base, they're economic. Just pay people the same. Let them solve it. Pay them the same. Give them power, promote them at the same rates. That's your job. That's it. Do that. We don't have to have any more of these issues.
And we wouldn't have to have books written about how to do well in an interview or how to do well on a resume. Yeah. I mean, in reality, women are more likely going to be asked, so what's the salary that you're looking for?
My friend's having that situation right now too. And she was like, what do I tell them when because I just got asked what I'm looking for. And I was like, oh my God, literally I've been talking with you. Like my best friend, right? I'm like, I've been saying this for a decade, girl. Don't name a number first. Don't say yes to the first offer. And she was like, but they're asking me. And I'm like, that doesn't mean you have to be nice about it. It doesn't mean you have to be mean, but it doesn't mean that you have to bend to them. You are interviewing them. Say, I'd like to find out what you think I'm worth to your company. If they can't figure out a way to answer that question, then what they're doing is they're attempting to drive the price down on you as a commodity instead of hire you as a person and a leader. And if you're getting hired as a commodity, and you can't afford your student loans, take a job, then get a different job. If you're getting hired as a commodity and you're doing fine and you're just looking for your next move on. Let them deal with the fact that they're going to get sub-market rate talent at a sub-market rate price, unless they hire women who have super market rate talent at sub-market rate prices. This is how you save money. And I'm a filthy capitalist. I'll save money where I can, right? And if I'm able to use these tactics, I never said I was perfect. I'm somebody who's an InfoSec executive. I'm going to try to drive the price down on my talent as much as I possibly can until I get to the point where I see a differentiation between men and women, between underrepresented minorities, and then I'm going to start fixing that problem. But I'm still going to try to drive the price down. I've got a budget, I've got a job to get done, I've got goals I've got to hit, I've got milestones, right? And so remember that the people you're talking to, if they have privilege and don't see it, don't see the differentiation between asking men and women that question. They don't see the power differential. It's not there for them. So they don't think it's there for you.
Yeah, and also giving people a heads up when it comes to title negotiations. If you are currently working somewhere, you want to go and climb a ladder, and you have a sit down with your boss and whatnot, and you're like, I want to have a higher position. And they turn around saying, I'm sorry, you don't have leadership qualities, like you have no leadership experience, or you're not technical enough. I'm going to be really honest. Anyone who's ever said that to me, I literally need to find a job immediately or find a new boss, because what's going to end up happening is you will never be promoted. You will not get a salary increase. It is time to move to somewhere else that will appreciate you. And anyone who's already has that belief of you means that wherever you're working is not going to work with you or help you grow. And if every job you get, you want to make sure you can grow in it. That's the most important thing. Don't just take a job because you know how to do it. Also, you want to learn new things. This is how you like get bigger and bigger and bigger at your job, or you get bigger and bigger salaries in a sense.
Anything else you want to know, lady?
No, I think that's good. Thanks for spending some extra time. I know we were only planning to do this for an hour, but anyone who's in the book club, there is a poll at the very bottom of the homepage which asks what time works best for you, because I know that this is also a time for most people at work. So if there's a time that works better for you, please do the poll. This is going to be really helpful because I want to try to set up weekly meetings, and Tarah might join for each one of these, or she might just attend for another one. And just keep that in mind. Now, when it comes to reading the book, it is at your own pace in a sense. We have an entire month to read this book. I'm already on page, I think I post my pages publicly on my profile, but I think I'm on page like 83 right now. I could be totally wrong, but just take a look at it, read a little bit this week, and then next week we'll reconnect and we will chat and answer questions, have a good discussion. And yeah, and we can get some questions to Tarah if she can't attend, but we'll have questions for her that we send her way. So when she does or is able to attend, she could be able to answer all these questions for us. So thank you again, Tarah, for being here and for setting up the YouTube. And thanks for everyone who's joining. And I hope to see you next week in our book club. And I hope you guys are excited and you have ordered your book or on a digital copy.
I will, for anybody who wants it, I am more than happy if you send me a flat rate envelope, a copy of the book or a flat rate envelope with something back to you. I'm more than happy to sign anything, or if you just want me to ship one off to you, I'm more than happy to do that. Like I can give you like a publisher or purchase link for it or something like that. I'll ship one off to you that's signed if you want. So just kind of let me know. Reach out on Twitter. I'm at t@tarah.org. There's contact on the website and stuff like that. This is a real pleasure. I think I got to be your guinea pig this week figuring this all out. So thanks so much for
thanks for being my guinea pig.
letting me know about the audio issues in the beginning. So thank you for letting me know about that one. Now I can hopefully make this better. But yeah, the best way to reach me always is @Tarah on Twitter. So after that, yeah, just reach out anytime. I'll talk to you. I really will.
All right, great. Thank you, Tarah. Thanks, everyone. Have a great rest of your day, and please stay safe from the coronavirus.
I will do my best.